we're back at the hangar. We got the airplane home Monday night. The TKS kit installation went according to plan. We got that done within 2 weeks, so that was awesome. We're still on track for the timeline. But whenever you do something major to an airplane, you inadvertently find other things out. So while it was at the shop in Chicago getting this work done, we found out that the starter was getting a little weak. So Joe is here today. He's replacing the starter. So we've got the airplane torn down again. And I think we're to the point now where it's finally going back together. So one last little repair to be done here. And then I think we've got the mechanical side of the airplane ready to go. This is Joe from Jace Aviation. He takes care of my airplane for me. We have a relationship that's a little bit like a doctor and a patient. It's very personal. It's sometimes somewhat emotional. And he knows all my deep, dark secrets. The TKS Ice Protection Kit is what we had installed at Chicago, and this book here is all the drawings of everything that went into this installation. And so there's a whole bunch of engineered drawings of different components that they put on. I'm just going to do a little walk around and show you what it's all about. The basic premise is we want to protect the flying surfaces of the airplane from ice accumulation. Anytime ice accumulates on an aircraft flying surface, it degrades its ability to produce lift. So the worst place for this to happen is at the leading edge of the wing. That's where ice starts to accumulate. So if you see on an airliner, it'll have a silver strip on the front of the wing, and that's where in that type of system, they push hot air that comes off the jet engines through that cavity, and that keeps ice from forming. You'll also notice before you take off on an airliner, often they'll spray the wing with de-ice fluid or anti-ice fluid, and that keeps ice from forming after you take off and you fly through the clouds. The type of system that works for my airplane is called a TKS Ice Protection System. What it consists of is these titanium panels that are essentially glued to the leading edge of the wing. They're hollow, and the front edge of this panel is actually porous. So what happens is if we come over to the baggage compartment here, inside the baggage compartment is where the TKS fluid is stored. There's a tank here and some pumps. When I select a switch on the panel, it will pump this fluid up into the wings, and that's where it'll weep out of the leading edge and bleed back onto the wing to prevent the ice from forming. There's also panels installed on the horizontal stabilizer and the vertical stabilizer. Those will keep ice from forming on the tail, which is important because that's where our rudder and elevator are. This is the stall warning vane, and so we had to have a new one installed that's heated. So when we're flying in icing conditions, this is actually electrically heated to keep ice from forming. So there's two other things that are really, really critical to protect in an icing situation. One is the propeller. We need to make sure that we can still achieve forward thrust. A propeller really loses its efficiency quickly when it gets coated with ice. So what the system does is it pushes fluid through a tube to a slinger ring right behind the prop. From there it spreads it out and back into these tubes. These tubes come out of the spinner, and then there's these rubber boots that have these grooves on them. The fluid will get spread down the grooves and along the prop as it's rotating, again keeping the ice from forming on the propeller. It's also very important that we can see. We've protected the wings from ice, we've protected the prop from ice, we've protected the stall warning horn from ice. We still need to be able to see, and that's what this windshield spray bar does. So again, I've got a switch in the cockpit I can press momentarily, spray the TKS fluid on the windshield to keep the ice from forming there. So this is the control head right here. Now you can see I've got a lot of stuff going on in my panel. I didn't have a whole lot of room left, so this was the best place that they could find to put it. It's still within reach. I don't really need to do a whole lot with it. It tells me how much fluid is left in the tank, so that's important to know because as we're flying, we'd want to know how much we have left for how much time. Basically just giving us an idea of how long we could fly in icing conditions. I've got the button here that I can press to spray the windshield, and I can put it into two different modes of anti-ice or de-ice. We're going to turn it on de-ice right now. You can hear the pump go, and then we're going to have a look at the fluid coming out. getting really close to being ready to go. One of the last things I need to do now is weigh all of our equipment and all of our gear. I have to put that into a weight and balance legally. Every time I take off with the airplane, I have to know what's on board and where it's located to make sure that we're within the guidelines of what the manufacturer says for what we can legally carry. So this is all the stuff that I need to weigh now, figure out where it's going to be in the airplane, and then from that I can calculate weight and balance. So this is almost all of the gear that we're going to be bringing along, with the exception of our own personal belongings. So what I've got here is 2 bladder tanks. These are tanks that were made by the people at Winkler Canvas. Fantastic, ingenious people there that figure out how to do this kind of stuff every day. So these 2 bladder tanks are not plumbed into the airplane. They're meant just to bring supplemental fuel in case we have to divert to an airport that doesn't have fuel. Then at least we have a little bit extra. We can get back in the air and find a location where we can get fuel. So that's what these 2 are for. They're going to be on the back seat. I've got 1 full so I can weigh it. This jug here is extra TKS fluid. So there's 5 gallons in here. That's enough for 1 fill on our tank. We've got the rapid ditch bag. We went through that in a prior episode. The life raft. I've got one of the suits here that we can weigh. And then I've got a bunch of other gear. There's just some stuff that I like to carry on board the aircraft, some tools, I've got my camera gear, and of course a whole bunch of GoPro mounts and things like that. Okay, so let's start weighing some stuff. Here's the life raft. All right, so we've weighed everything that we're anticipating bringing along, again, with the exception of our own personal luggage, clothing, that kind of stuff. So I've taken all the weights, I've put them into my Garmin Pilot app, and I've assigned the locations where I expect those things to be. So first of all, I've got myself and Luke up in the front row, anticipating we'll each have a survival suit on. So this is simulating as if we're doing an ocean crossing. I've got Adam as a middle passenger. He's going to have the rapid ditch bag and the raft beside him, and he'll also have a survival suit on. In the rear seat, we're going to have the 2 fuel bladders. They'll each have 60 pounds of fuel in them. And then in the baggage compartment is where we'll have camera gear, the other miscellaneous gear and tools that I've got along, and also a spare jug of TKS fluid. With full fuel in both tanks, we are looking at a total takeoff weight of 4,042.8 pounds. So that is nicely under our gross takeoff weight of 4,200 pounds. That means between myself and Luke and Adam, we can bring another about 155 pounds of luggage. And I travel light, so for me, 15 pounds, 20 pounds of luggage for a trip like this isn't a problem, especially considering all my camera gear and everything else is included in this already. So we're nicely within the envelope. You can see here, this is a graph that shows where our weight and balance is. Weight and balance is very important. If you get outside of the envelope, either too far forward or too far back, it affects how the airplane flies, and it could actually make it uncontrollable. And we're basically sitting in a very nice spot with weight and balance on this. We're just about ready to go. The airplane is ready to get loaded, and we're almost ready to leave. I'm just working a little bit on the final details of our flight plan and our routing. I've been getting some questions from people in regards to the routing. When you look at a map of the Earth and you look at the route that we're going to fly, at first it appears that we're flying way far north, up across Greenland, Iceland, and then coming back down to England. And really that's a factor of the projection that's used on this type of map. Really, if we go and look at a globe, we can see it quite clearly. If we take a flat piece of paper and we wrap it across our destination, so let's say we're flying from Winnipeg to London, England. The shortest route actually goes over top of the globe, and it does go across Greenland and fairly close to Iceland. So our route in reality is a lot straighter than what the flat projected map really looks like. So this red line is a straight line, what they call the Great Circle Route, which goes directly the shortest route from Winnipeg to London. That's the red line. This purple line is our projected line. So really, when you look at it from this angle, when you turn the globe and look at it from a different perspective, the route that we're flying really isn't that far north, and it really isn't that far off of what would be the absolute most direct route. One of the last things that I need to do is call to the airports that we're going to be landing at, just so that I can verify when they're open, that they're open for landing, and that we can get fuel. Now, we've already done this, but this is sort of the last check, just to make sure that nothing's changed since we last called a couple weeks ago. So I'm going to call some of these guys again and just check and see where they're at. So first I'm going to call Gillam. The operator there is Gillam Air Service. Hi there. I'm just calling to verify a couple things. We're planning a flight on Sunday, and we'd like to stop in Gillam for fuel. What time do you guys open in the morning?
We're open 24/7.
Okay, perfect. And you have
what kind of fuel? What kind of fuel do you guys need?
We're a Cessna 210. We'll require 100 low lead.
100 low lead. Okay, because we have a really short supply on avgas just because of what's been happening, and we use a lot of it for our aircraft.
There has been a little bit of disruption in the 100 low lead avgas supply. Just recently, there was some contaminated fuel that went out. We actually did some research on it, and from the research that we found out was that the supply of contaminated avgas was limited to British Columbia. All of the avgas supply in Manitoba has been cleared, and so we incorrectly assumed that that hadn't affected any avgas supply in Manitoba. So let's call Nook Greenland. Hello, I'm planning a flight into Nook on Monday, and I just wanted to confirm a couple things. What are your hours of operation?
From this Saturday, I think we're switching to summertime, so it's 10 Zulu.
10 Zulu
1900
to 1900.
1900 Zulu.
Okay.
And it's Monday to Saturday.
Okay. And do you have availability of 100 low lead avgas?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Do you sell by the liter or by the barrel?
It's by the liter.
Okay. Very good. And do you also have customs there?
Yes, we can contact the customs per mail as soon as we get your flight plan or email for the plan.
Okay. We're coming from Iqaluit, so what is the email to send that to?
It's BGGH.
GGH.
Hotel.
Yeah.
At Mike India Tango.
Yeah.
.gl. .ema.
So bggh at mit.gl.
Yes, April.
Okay. I will try and get that email out to you shortly with what our plans are, and then we'll confirm it again before we leave on Monday.
Okay, that sounds really good.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Good. Greenland is ready for us. So that gets us to Greenland. We got a few more calls to make like this along the way. Some of this we're just going to do as we go to confirm, but this gets us well on our way. So we're ready to go.